Hope everyone is back. We will go ahead and start the session again. As I told you, we have a couple more presentations. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day for today, Matt Cook, who is a retired registered sanitarian and environmental health specialist or a health inspector from Cochise County in the state of Arizona. Matt was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey, and graduated from Curry College, Milton, Massachusetts, with a BS in biology. Matt earned an MEd in instructional media from Bridgewater State University, Bridgewater, Massachusetts. He then moved to Tucson, Arizona, and for the next 10 years, studied the technical history of photography independently at the library and archives of the University of Arizona, John P. Schaefer Center for Creative Photography. In 1993, Matt moved to Bisbee, Arizona, where he was hired as a county sanitarian or health inspector. He earned his registration as an Arizona registered sanitarian, working for Cochise County as Deputy Health Officer for District 2, including the southeastern 900 square miles of Cochise County and the state of Arizona. Matt retired from the county in 2009, though he has retained his registration as an Arizona registered sanitarian, working as a consultant in environmental health. Matt lives in Bisbee, Arizona with his faithful companion and service dog, Penny. She's really sweet. He keeps and engaged himself in food safety by helping out small food companies at the Mimosa Farmers Market by developing food safety protocols and HACCP plans, and he helps them out. We have been working with Matt recently, and our collaborations have been really productive. So Matt is going to talk to us about what an old retired health inspector learned about hand washing and more about his experience over the years with regard to hand hygiene. It's a very timely topic, with the pandemic. Everybody needs to wash their hands properly and so on. So I hope this specific presentation will be of use to all of us at the current times. So thank you, Matt. It's all yours now.
Thank you very much, Sadhana. I have been working in this field one way or another for 28 years now, or 27. And I worked for 15 years, as I say, for the county. And in fact, can we see? Wait a minute. I'll let you hold it. There you go. Okay, that was my badge. And what it is that I've got a background in biology and some medical stuff and so forth. But when I started this job, the first thing I realized as I was going through inspecting in restaurants and anything else that had to do with the handling of food was that people did not know how to wash their hands and fingers. And I'm one of those people. So I spent a lot of time online in the old days with looking up what I could on hand hygiene, hand washing, what matters, and so forth. And after about 3 years, I had a pretty good sense of it. And then, in fact, maybe 5 years ago, I looked on Wikipedia in hand hygiene or hand washing. It knows every bit or more than I do. So that's a very good resource. Essentially, the idea is when you want to, your hands touch the world, everything. And your hands take from what's on them and spread them to the world, and take the world and spread it all around. So the idea of washing your hands is not to sterilize, or actually not even really to sanitize, but to clean whatever's on the surface. And in order to do that, it's not the soap that does the job, it's a soap emulsion. And you'll see in the video we'll have in a moment how you prepare your hands by wetting them and then putting some soap on, working the soap in, working it around, and then also working your fingers so that because it's your fingers, like I say, that touch everything. In fact, let's look at that. Here's a video.
Hi, I'm Ariel Robinson, and I'm here to talk to you today about a simple but effective way to wash your hands and fingers.
So here Ariel is, again, first wetting her hands. It's valuable and important to get the skin surface wet because you're working with a soap emulsion. That's the chemicals of the soap, which are a linear molecule, where it's a polar molecule where one end essentially is hydrophobic, which is to say it rejects water and attracts oils, and the other one is hydrophilic. So it's because you're wet and because you've got grease, it takes the grease away by lifting it, holding onto it, and then allowing it to be flushed away with the rinse water. As you see, Ariel is now going through her hands and scraping, so to speak, her nails into the palm to get the soap emulsion underneath the nail. And then rinsing. And you take paper towel, and you can just pat. You don't really have to wipe the water off. And then shutting down.
And thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned as much as I did.
Thank you. Now, this is, of course, a fly, and the fly may very well be an issue in restaurants. I don't know how bad of an issue it is, but the way that a fly eats is that they regurgitate their enzymes and so forth onto the surface and then suck it back up. Disgusting little creatures. But that's just as a start. In reality, what I think is a much more important thing is how you, as a person in your own life, or how you, as a food handler, deal with the hand hygiene. You saw a methodology, but now the next question is, where do you do that? In a food service environment, this is a leaking sink, hand sink, that's leaking into now a complete bowl of water. And here's another case. In this case, the hand sink over here is supposed to be clear and ready to use at any time. Well, it has a container in there, so it's not really ready. And I don't see where the soap is or the paper towels. But the other aspect is here is a work surface, and what we have is shrimp, and we have meat, and it's not a good idea to mix things on a table, especially things like lettuce and chicken, which I saw quite a bit of, and had the people dump what they were working with, because I am your witness in a food service environment, and I had no sense of if there had been a specific cross-contamination. Let's look at this one. Okay, we have a similar situation, And again, the sink is not available for use. This was in a place that was a tortilleria, really great people, but I don't know. Oh, pardon me. I don't know that they had changed their soap in forever. As you can see, what all this little stuff is, it's called frass, which is basically roach poop. That might be a head of a roach over there. And disgusting. Here's a great one. So again, I'm seeing no paper towels, no soap. It is good that they have a GFC, ground fault. Anyway, that you within 3 feet. But the wonderful thing is the fly paper hanging over the sink. Here's another case. In here, we have the defrosting of some kind of meat, and this is empty. Here's another good one. As you can see, the sink is available, and there's soap, and I think there will be paper up above, but there's no, it's called a P-trap, that goes from the bottom of the sink and then goes down and up and out the drain. Here's another case where there's egg beaters and somebody's hanging some kind of sanitizer there. It's a hand sink, and they shouldn't have a pure water filter on there. Here's another case. This is an interesting knee-operated hand sink, but they just have meat just sitting in there. And here's yet another case of a hand sink that's not available because the cleaning supplies are in its way. What I'm trying to get across to you is that above and beyond what you do, where you do it, in a food service environment means a great deal, because you need to be able to wash your hands and fingers anytime they may have gotten contaminated, and also at some regular sort of interval based upon what you're doing. You might want it to be every 10 minutes, 20 minutes, according to what you're working with. Or if you're working with something like chicken, you may want to be washing your hands and fingers that much more frequently. Here's yet another case of in this case, a table that is keeping the sink from being available. This is an interesting case. This was a foodborne illness outbreak that I investigated with another sanitarian. And what we had was, there was a Experimental Aircraft Association Christmas dinner at a restaurant, a large restaurant. And what happened is about 60 people got sick. And the county found out about it, and I was sent to investigate. And here's where the workers were preparing salads. What they were doing, and if you look at the laser, you see how there are bowls stacked with salad prep in it. So it's just the basics. And of course, there's lots of bowls. And in fact, this is even more bowls. And they would then put them into the other side of this refrigerator, stacked up so that when somebody ordered, according to what dressing or what toppings, they would then prep it and bring it out to them. Here's some issues. This was 59 degrees, and it should have been 41 degrees or less. Here we have another one where the internal temperature is 61 and the external 64. And again, it should be 41 degrees or less. Over here, and the meat, it was 94 degrees. And that should have been like 145 if that were being sitting out for service. And now this is pardon me, this is the sink for washing utensils. There was no dishwashing machines. So we went through all of these things, and then I asked the owner or the manager if the roster of working food handlers was available, and we looked at that, and I said, okay, so with the first name, where is he? Well, he's over there. Where is she? She's in the other room. And it goes on and on and on. And the last name was Nate. And I said, where's Nate? And he said, well, his grandmother called in and he's been ill. So he was advised to go and check at the hospital. And what that led to was a diagnosis of norovirus. The issue is that they didn't have a dishwashing machine. Nate, or whomever it would be washing by hand, and they didn't have air dry, so the person who is doing the washing would be drying with a towel. And that was what allowed for the transmission of the norovirus, and it's called a fecal oral route of infection. Their fecal to your oral by their hands as they're working with utensils, food, whatever. And that's again, a reason for paying attention as you're washing your hands and your fingers in how you're going about it. Because the water, soap or soap emulsion, and friction is what does the job. Then, in the rest of the food, well, what I call it, food inspection system is you're looking at equipment, and some things you look at every few months, and finally you realize, oh no. And that's what happened in yet another establishment that I don't have a photograph of, but behind the stainless steel walls of the walk-in refrigerator, it was just loaded with mold, etc., and didn't know about that until they had to remove some panels to work on the foam that was back there, and it was just incredible. So food safety is one thing, but how you manage your hand hygiene is really, really important. So now let's go to, these are some things that I do. This is the kind of photography I do. This is what led to what the 10 years, actually now it's 38 years of research at the center led me to. This is what I call the street people. There's no Photoshop, there's no manipulation. This is exactly what's there on the ground. Here's another one. It looks like a harbor, but that's just a hill, and that's just the sky and the clouds and how they happen to have been that day. Grumpy monkey, just on a street here in Tucson. This is my latest masterpiece. I saw this on a corner by the bank, and you can see the shadow. I was taking its picture, and here it is, the reluctant armadillo. What this is some dog pooped and then somebody slipped, and something about the pattern on the sole of their shoe was able to make the lines and create it. This is exactly what I saw there. Then Penny, as in the role of an Arizona high desert mountain tiger, a shot of when Penny hurt her paw, and she's fine. And finally, this one, it's not a muzzle, it's a mask. It takes a bite out of COVID-19. So at this point, are there any questions, and how can I help you?
Thank you so much, Matt. Yeah, very interesting pictures. Looks like you probably collected them over the years. So any questions from Matt? Please, put it, post your questions on the chat, or you can even speak up. So let me begin with the question. So I have one question to begin with, Matt. So you showed a lot of pictures with all, no-nos with regard to food safety. So did every, one of those cases get cited for a violation? And how do you, measure the corrective action? How much time do you give them? And do you go back for a reinspection? And how you check to see if they have addressed it? So if you can give us a little bit about the process, especially for students, that would be really useful.
And that's interesting, because I'll see if I can relate this to the work that you're doing in labs or in the field. The issue is that nobody teaches hand hygiene. And until I started working on it, I realized that was the case. And I've already probably taught 15, 20,000 people, either in small groups or often alone, about a good method, as you saw Ariel use, for hand hygiene. What it is you come into a situation, and I'll use the example of in a restaurant, and you see the kind of things that we saw in these slides, and you then speak to either a food handler who's right there or the manager, and you're able to say, here's the issue. This is what you need to have. You need to have a hand, in the case of hand sinks, a hand sink that is always available. And therefore, you want to make sure that there's sufficient paper towels, that the soap is there, and that nothing's in the sink, and that the area around the sink allows for simple, quick, direct access to it. And it's a violation, but I don't believe in punishment. I believe in helping people see what the problem is. Then I come back. In some cases, I would come back maybe once a week for a few months, because I wasn't satisfied that people were behaving in a proper manner. And I simply am the witness for the community, for you, to ensure that wherever you're eating, that the food, whether it's good tasting or not, that's their problem. But my responsibility is to ensure that it's sanitary. Is there anything else, Sadhana, on that?
I think you answered it. And if they, let's say, they have to come up with a corrective action, how much time are they given, the establishments?
Thank you. The way that you judge that is the nature of criticality. The most important things in food safety are temperature and time, and infective dose, route of infection. These kinds of parameters balance out to give you the sense as an inspector or as an operator, how immediately you must work on it. For example, you go in to inspect a restaurant and the plumbing is not working and it's backing up onto the floors. There's nothing that you can do at the moment, so you shut it down. And I've done that a few times. Then there were other cases where I found in a particular chicken place, the door to the walk-in fridge had a handle, and what happens is that the food workers who were working with the chicken would go there, open it up, get out the tray of chicken, come out, close it. People who are going to get lettuce or whatever that's not temperature sensitive as far as it's not going to be cooked. They would go in and get theirs. Well, it turned out there was a foodborne illness outbreak at that place. And what it became when we did some swabbing and having PCR, whatever tests done, is that everybody was using the same handle. Well, it turned out that by having a second handle that was red, where you'd push it, that would force the door open, unlock it and force the door open. And only the handlers who were working directly with the chicken were allowed to use that. The other standard handle was for anybody else. So these are the kind of corrections that there are. And it's also an educational thing. I've had times when I got places that were just incredible. And I'd get everybody and say, look, we have to close down. You got to, your food temperatures are way above in the refrigeration, your food temperatures are way above what they should be. And there's this, there's that. So we have to dump all that food because there's no way of knowing if being so far out of the range of temperature, whether or not some microbial infection of the food exists. So they get rid of the food and then clean up and go over all the different places where they have issues. Then I would sit everybody down and with the food handler books we used to use and say, let's look at this and then make a discussion of food safety, because it wasn't so much my teaching them, but my showing them how much they already knew and understood from like at home or relatives' houses. And that's really how you control food safety. Lately, what happens, the state requires, wow, too long. Oh no, I'm doing good. That requires that the state requires that there be a certified manager or certified person in command who has taken these courses and passed them. So there's at least one at any time in an open facility. And that person is the one who's responsible on a daily basis to go and visit the different stations in their restaurant and be able to observe and instruct. Because food safety is not just a random thing. It's surprising how much you have to know just to start on being safe. And finally, what kinds of corrective actions you need to take or need to teach the people to take. But I've been reading about ancient food science, and I can't imagine that we lived this long. But now, if a restaurant is properly inspected, chances are, again, if the food is good, that's a matter of the chef. But if the food is safe and sanitary, that's up to the food handlers. And perhaps the most important thing they do, once they are aware of temperatures, time, and because you don't want food laying too long. At 41 degrees, you would expect food to be safe, even if it had gotten contaminated when they put it in the fridge, for 7 days. So that's where the time comes in. But anyway, for us and for everybody, hand and finger washing anytime is valuable.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, that was a very descriptive answer. There is a quick question. I know there are several comments and everybody can read them. There's one question from Richard Park. Has working as a health inspector changed your attitude to eating out?
It's funny that you asked that, because early on, it probably took me 4 or 5 years out of the 15 to get the idea when people would say, how can I tell if a restaurant is sanitary? And I never really had a good answer until one day I just said, you have to inspect it. The one place you can inspect are the restrooms. That'll tell you how well the manager has the staff maintaining the restrooms. The other thing, when you walk into a restaurant, a bar, a family event, whatever, if you think you're smelling a rat, you're smelling a rat. Your senses will tell you. I bet everybody out there has had an instance sometime in their life where they've gone to a picnic, a dinner, a restaurant, school, and you go to eat and you're not quite sure. It's not warm enough. It doesn't taste right. There's just something there. I believe, I don't know this as a fact, but I strongly believe you, as a lifetime, up until you were a graduate student, have had so many experiences with foodborne illness that you're able to understand where it came from. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Matt. I don't think there are any other questions. There are several comments which I think everybody can go through. So in the interest of time,
thank you.
I will move on. Thank you so much, Matt. I think your pictures, both of the food safety and the non-food safety creative photography, are excellent, and this was very educative, especially very timely topic. So, and I really appreciate you taking the time, driving all the way to the university to be with us and give this presentation.
It's a
and
pleasure.
Thank you, Richard, for helping you. Yeah.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to offer you and your lab and the audience what I know.
Thank you. Yeah, sharing knowledge is what it's all about. So really, really appreciate that. Thank you.